So modern pregnancy tests are over 99% accurate. That's seriously impressive, but how do they actually work? Well, they use two special types of proteins that are called antibodies and antigens. When an antigen gets close enough to an antibody, it gets captured and they bind together. However, antibodies are quite fussy about which types of antigens are allowed to bind to them. The wrong type of antigen comes along, it won't be allowed to bind. So you can think of this just like a lock and a key. So for any given lock, any one particular key will fit it. This is the same for antibodies and antigens. Only one antigen will fit our antibody. But during pregnancy, a special type of antigen called HCG is produced. HCG eventually makes its way to the urine of the pregnant woman. So a typical pregnancy test will use antibodies that will only bind to this HCG antigen. So if any binding is detected, it must mean that there's HCG present in the urine, which will mean that the user was pregnant. So unfortunately, the size of these antibodies and antigens is so small that we can't actually see the binding take place. They're only about 20 nanometers in height, which is millions of times smaller than a single centimetre. So because of that, the pregnancy test is divided into two sections. So the first section here is an absorbent sample stick, which acts to suck up the urine and flow it over here to the results section. So the sample stick itself is covered in millions of antibodies, but each of these antibodies is also attached to a tiny coloured bead. So as the stick is urinated on, the antigen from the urine attaches itself to the antibodies. But these antibodies are also attached to the bead underneath, so we're essentially creating a chain-like structure. So the sponge action of the stick washes the urine and the chain of molecules over to our results section. So in the results section, there's another line of antibodies that's sort of stuck there quite hard, and these act as kind of mini fishermen. And as the antigens flow past, they get caught up and bound to these antibodies. So these antibodies in the results section are essentially grabbing the top of our chain. So this means that eventually a large number of beads will become deposited in this region, and we'll get a coloured line that's the same colour as the beads. So the test is giving us a pregnant result. If there was no HCG present in the urine and the user wasn't pregnant, then this effect wouldn't occur, because as the antibodies with the beads come to the antibodies in the results section, they've got no way to bind. So no line would be formed, and we wouldn't get a pregnant result. So that's basically how a pregnancy test works. It's a lot like a lock and a key. Thanks for listening.